Hello, Malcolm here, and welcome to Corporate Worship Matters. And today we're beginning a three-part mini-series on trends in worship. Knowing what the trends are and how they affect the members of our congregation and thus our corporate worship effectiveness, I think it's very important if we're a worship leader. Trends have changed over time. When I first came to this church, we were singing all a cappella, voices only, mostly hymns, and they were great and lovely. We should retain the best of that. But things have moved on. Now we use instruments and we sing hymns, choruses, various genres of worship songs, and that's good. We have a blended worship, and I think that's right because our congregations are very blended. They're very diverse, and that's good. That reflects the society around us. But what about, that's where we've been and that's where we are, but where are we going? To know where we're going, I think it's important for us to understand the worship culture our congregations are immersed in personally. What are they listening to? Only if we understand what people are listening to and enjoying can we know whether we're serving them best as worship leaders. So let's think about this for a little bit. David Murrow, in his book Why Men Hate Church, says, if you're serious about reaching men, move it outside, move church services outside. Is that the right way to go? Some church groups today use liturgy, some use newly written creeds, scent, dance and art in their meetings. A Seattle congregation I heard of has no preacher, they say, but someone just coordinating events and offering a lesson through their blog. So there's lots of different ways to do church and to do worship. We need to be intentional and thinking about what's working best and what will work best for our local church situation where we're responsible for corporate worship. Some services contain a lot of singing, some less, some one particular genre, some others. Are you aware of the worship culture where you live, in the area where you live, but also within your own congregation? I don't mean what happens on a Sunday, but the kind of worship music that's being listened to and absorbed by the members of your church. So 3 suggestions for surfacing the trends that are exposed to your congregation and influencing your congregation, and then you can think about the best way of how to apply that to where you are. So firstly, I suggest we survey our congregations. When's the last time you surveyed your congregation for what are they listening to? Not just what do they like, that's useful to know, but what are they listening to? In the car, when they're in the shower, when they're doing the housework, when they are just sitting there meditating, perhaps on a scripture or just in prayer. What are they listening to? I think it's useful to ask the question, what radio stations are you listening to? What Christian artists and albums are you listening to? What are you absorbing? And that's the first thing we might look at. The second thing we could look at is to visit other local worship experiences. A few years ago, I took our worship team, then in Northwest London, to a Hillsong service. It's not our type of church service generally, but it's a little bit different. Well, in fact, quite different. It was good. We went as a team. We sat there and took part of in the service. We enjoyed it largely. And we came out, and then we had a debrief. Okay, so what did they do that was different from what we do? Was that helpful or not helpful? What have we seen today that we could apply that might be useful for us, and what might not be? Let's have a look at what we're doing and compare it with what they're doing and so on. That was a very helpful experience. I'd suggest you might want to do that. Have you been to a Catholic service? Have you been to a Pentecostal service? Have you been to a Methodist service? Have you been to a Hillsong service? What about Soul Survivor or something like that? So consider other kinds of Christian traditions and what they are doing. Have a look. Go along. Maybe don't compromise your own service, but go to perhaps an evening one. That's what we did when we went to the Hillsong service. We went, I think, at 6:30 in the evening. So have a think about that. Survey your own congregation, but secondly, try some other worship experiences. And thirdly, have a look at the Christian worship charts. What's top of the charts right now? What's in the top 10? Not just in what people are buying, but listening to or being performed. Look at the CCLI charts. What's top? What's in the top 10? Have you even listened to those? Maybe you know them, maybe you don't. But if they're popular elsewhere, they're helping somebody, maybe they'd help us in our local congregation. You need to use discernment. Some of the lyrics need checking. Some of the doctrine needs checking. And sometimes we don't have the musical resources, or we just don't feel like they're going to meet the needs of our local church, but at least we can have a look. So 3 ways to look at trends and different experiences. Firstly, what's the congregation listening to? Secondly, check out some other worship experiences. And thirdly, what's in the charts? Have a look at those and let me know what you find and what you think at what you find. I hope as we examine those trends or surface those trends, we'll then find some things that might help us serve our congregations better and ultimately bring God the glory. We'll look at part 2 of trends next time. I hope this has been helpful. Please leave a comment. Tell me what you found useful, or tell me your own opinion or what you've discovered in your congregation. It'd be so useful because when we post comments, we can all read them and then we can learn from one another. So I hope you have a wonderful worship week. Take care and God bless.